and we have DSL and obviously traditional cable, right? Are you saying also that the fiber optics are also Hawaii, or is it just the DSL?
So DOCSIS is different. So cable is different. Huawei's never really established a strong position there. But from the fiber perspective, probably up until about a year ago, 2 years ago, most of the fiber deployments were Huawei OLT and core infrastructure. So fiber equipment.
Can
And
I just
That's a very interesting thing, Jonathan and Tyler. This really chimes into that news article because this may become a bigger problem because KPN is one of the leading, if not the conglomerate, like the monopoly of fiber in Netherlands. And it's connected to it's connected to a lot of companies as well. So it's very interesting to see this conversation come up because Jonathan, what I'm hearing you say is if there's fiber optic and KPM is a lead provider of fiber optics fiber optics glass, then that means we could make the assumption or the observation that some of that could be Hawaii's product.
I think that's fair. I mean, if you look, you just need to Google Deutsche Telekom reviews into their network and you'll see how much, it's public knowledge, how much fixed line infrastructure is supplied by or was supplied by Huawei.
Speaking of Huawei, how far did I get in my article before my stream died?
If you want, you can repeat again, Tyler.
Okay. So the article is Huawei's ability to eavesdrop on Dutch mobile users is a wake-up call for the telecom industry. Is my signal all right?
Very good.
Okay, so Chinese technology provider Huawei was recently accused of being able to monitor all calls made using Dutch mobile operator KPN. The revelations from a report which KPN commissioned to evaluate the risks of working with Huawei. And the end result is both KPN and Huawei. The full report on the issue has not been made public. Journalists reporting on the story have outlined specific concerns that Huawei personnel in the Netherlands and China had access to security essential parts of KPN's network, including the calls of millions of Dutch citizens, and the lack of records meant that KPN couldn't establish how often this had happened. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Crystal clear.
Yeah, so this has been precisely the point that America was trying to make in telling its allies not to use Huawei, and why America had banned Huawei and Japan banned Huawei, and America was pushing all of its allies globally to not do this precisely for this being one of reasons, actually. But it's a bit concerning now that reports are now being made that Huawei is taking advantage of the infrastructure to do potential espionage, as is being reported by KPN in the Netherlands. So
I have a question.
Yes.
Is that any different than like maybe what some of the telecom companies might do over here, as far as like AT&T and whatnot, at the behest of the U.S. government?
It's different in that this isn't. The difference is that Huawei and the Chinese government are essentially one and the same. Where in America, there's a separation between the government and AT&T, or even more so Apple, where Apple notoriously resists giving data to the U.S. government. And there's a lot of pushback to, it's not as easy and there's more transparency and protocols around what the U.S. government is able to do with U.S. data's citizens, as Snowden highlighted and is debated kind of transparently in our legal system. The problem is there isn't the same level of transparency with regard to China and the countries. China's not saying, hey, Dutch citizens, we're going to be spying on your phone calls. And there's not an open forums or transparency around if that should be happening or not. They're denying that it's happening at all.
Although, Tyler, transparency because of Snowden.
Yes.
So
pre-Snowden, it was very similar. Yes.
Yeah, you had NSA keys in Windows software. So, the US government had access. You had backdoors built into Cisco software. And all of this is well documented. So it's sort of the same thing.
Well, the question is America doesn't really have a strong 5G network provider. It's really Sweden and Huawei are the two players. It's Ericsson and Huawei. And the question is the Swedish government, Ericsson hardware is sold all over the world. And is the Swedish government listening into Indonesian customers or Indian customers? Because India announced they're not going to use the Huawei 5G system. They're going to use Ericsson. And this was a headline from about 3 weeks ago. Do we think Sweden's listening to people's phone calls? And what is Sweden doing with that information? Do they have a history of corporate espionage? And are they stealing secrets and, ambassadors and government officials, are they using that information? So are we drawing a comparison? I don't know. You can draw. Here's the music for you, and you can knock yourself out. So there. Did we cover the DARPA headline? Oh, it was right when my news cut out. Speaking of government technologies, DARPA is teaching AIs to dogfight enemy airplanes. Human pilots already outmatched, as I just retweeted. And the headline says, if you thought the stealth movie of 2015 presented some far-off future of aerial combat, you might want to revise that expectation. We are already seeing countless AI systems developed to aid human pilots, but one of the scariest and at the same time most advanced is DARPA's ACE. ACE is short for Air Combat Evolution, and it's not the name of a video game. For now, it is a video game of sorts, but the American research agency DARPA plans to make it real by the end of 2021. The program started last year, and it calls for AI to engage in virtual dogfights with opponents. And according to the article that I retweeted, the AI is already outmatching human pilots, which would be very interesting indeed, because then you might be able to convert modern airplanes, military aircraft into drones, essentially, that are capable of dogfighting human pilots.
Dogfights are pretty rare these days, though.
Yeah, Taiwan would hope it stays that way. Let's go on to why former Google Ads boss is building an ad-free search engine, and this one being sent in from our own friend Cal Patel. Thank you for this one, Cal. And this new search engine called Neva, the CEO has actually been in Clubhouse a few times, and I even chatted with him on stage. He has been one of the most senior people in Google around Google's ad business, which is Google's business more than anything. And he has left Google to create a new search engine that is an ads-free search engine, but it's a paid search engine. I think they're charging $20 a month, if I remember correctly, for Neva. I was just added as a beta test user. Anyway, it's spelled Neeva. You can check it out. And I did just retweet this article from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account. The CEO of Neva, an ad-free search engine, he helped found after running Google's ad and commerce business. In an interview recently, he explains how Google's increasing reliance on ads has decreased the quality of its search engine and has real costs for users. Here's a quote. I personally do not think of ad-supported free products as being good for consumers, good for our country in the long term, because it is very hard for them to stay true to what you and I want as users and as customers of these products. So that's why he's building a Neva, and you can do the deep dive through the Twitter account. It's an article.
Is Maria there? I was curious what Maria would think of that. But,
yeah.
Oh, she's not there now.
Would you be willing to pay $20 for an ad-free version of Google? Essentially, is kind of the question.
What do you think?
Depends. Does it have the same quality as Google? Is it the same quality as Google?
They're claiming eventually it should be. Of course, it won't be the same quality of Google today because of the 20 years of developing an algorithm is hard to replicate in a year. But the experience might be better quite soon. So, for example, the search engine that Jason and I were doing called Mahalo, we would A/B test it with anonymous users in cafes, and on a side-by-side comparison, people preferred our search engine because it was a human-generated page, and humans can make. The problem is algorithms can make scale of search page results. We were doing human curated pages, which, if you plus Google can make a better search result than just Google, that's easy. You can look over all the links on a topic. We could pick a topic like Britney Spears, and Google's search results for Britney Spears, and then I hand that to you and I say, here, make a better one than this, and you move other articles that you find and you put those at the top, and then you find better photos and better videos, and then of course you're going to make a better search result than Google does for Britney Spears. As a human plus algorithm is better than just algorithm. That's obvious. The problem is it doesn't scale. You have to do that manually unless you involve China. And that's why we met with Masayoshi-san about a joint venture for Asia, which he was very excited about doing. And it's a long story, but in essence, Google is very threatened by this idea and became very competitive and shut us down, essentially. So it's but can Neva make a fully automated, better version? I think they could by removing the ads, but if you're willing to pay to remove, his point is essentially that, because it's free, it forces Google to introduce elements that ultimately reduce the quality. Well, yeah, sure enough. So do billboards in a city reduce the quality of the city? That's his point. Would you be willing to pay to live in a city without ads? Yeah, I probably would. And that's essentially, you can have a better experience. You just have to pay for it. Dave?
Yours is a great demonstration of the little equation: human plus machine equals intelligence. Because it's it's a really neat example. That's it.
Yeah,
but here's the problem, right, Tyler? Because Google can crawl most websites that exist on the World Wide Web, but this new search engine will actually have to ask permissions and whatnot, right? So for a website to crawl, you have the robot.txt, and they allow Google, but they need to allow this new crawler also.
It depends, and yeah, there is the don't crawl, metadata line that many websites use to stop people from crawling. And there's clever ways around that, of course. And Google has a long history of this space, and the Neva is very new to this space. It'll be interesting to see, and of course we can look at the other current DuckDuckGo search engines that are trying to compete with Google in a similar way. This person from Neva, having been a very senior person at Google, might be able, and I imagine because they got funding from Andreessen Horowitz, tells me that they might politically have a lot of the senior people from Google's search engine joining them at Neva, because I don't think Andreessen...
That's what I'm hearing.
Right.
That's what I'm hearing.
I think it's
obviously 77 million funding. He's not an idiot.
It's a super safe assumption that if Andreessen Horowitz is investing, that you can bet that means that this person who was super senior at Google is, and probably very well liked, that's what I'm told, was able to attract and hire and recruit the superstar talent from the search team from Google to leave, and that's why Andreessen Horowitz is investing. You can bet on that. So that probably does mean that there will be not a notable decrease in the search quality, not significantly, that would be the assumption, but that there would be an increase in the overall user experience due to the lack of ads due to you paying for it. So it's just, yeah.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
So I've actually been beta testing with Neva since November.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of interesting because when you start to use it, you immediately go back to Google or to any other search engine because you start to see the flaws, but they actively engage with their beta testers on a regular basis, and it's gotten better over the last 6 months or so. And then what I've noticed recently is that the more they work on it, the more, at least from my point of view, and I've been for many years trying to find anything better than Google. As we've exposed, just the privacy concerns I personally have with Google and how I love Google and everything that they've given us, but I have a problem with the fact that they just know everything I'm doing when I use their products. But what Neva's started to do is expose Google for its stupidity, and that's maybe a bad word to use. But when I use Google now or any kind of other search tool, I start to realize that it really doesn't know what I'm looking for. Even though it thinks it does, it really doesn't. And what I am starting to like, and this is for anyone who may want to join their beta or try to, is that there is a part of it that allows you to choose which services that they have partnered with that you can search from. So let's say news services. You can choose which you prefer. Like let's say, AP versus the New York Times versus TechCrunch versus whichever. So that you can sort of say, I'd prefer more news from these sources and less news from these sources. And it's kind of interesting how you can sort of gauge or reference different places based on your interests and versus other people's, and that you can really customize your search parameters within it. At least
Hey,
I'm starting
Tina,
to
you
really
answered a
like it.
bunch of the questions I had. Can you get me into the beta?
You can apply
That
on
I'm
the
not
website.
sure of.
Go to the website
Yeah.
and just register for the beta. They'll let you in before too long. There's a queue, but you'll probably in a week or two you'll get a notification you're able to join, but you have to pay to be in the beta, by the way. So,
Tyler,
yeah.
2 questions on this regard. What happens if Google releases a paid version of their search engine?
Correct.
2, what happens if because this new search engine talks all about privacy, ad-free, and stuff like that. What happens if Apple partner with them? Because Apple want to get rid of Google somehow.
Yes, these are great questions, Ranjit. So Google is going to watch this incredibly closely, as they do all search engines. And when Jason and I were starting Mahalo, they were watching us like a hawk. Like, holy shit! I couldn't believe how much, how closely they were watching, and both with curiosity if it was going to gain user adoption. Then at that point they have to decide either to acquire it or kill it, and it's pretty much as simple as that. And they will be doing the same with Neva, no doubt. And Google has a long history of people who have left Google, started companies that Google acquires and brings them back. TalkBin is just an easy example, but there's many examples of that, and this would certainly be the case here. If this starts to get any kind of market validation, then Google has a choice to either adopt it and compete, or acquire that company and kill it, and they will do all three actually. So it'll be
Tyler,
yes.
Just on the talent flight, because we talked about the AI ethics team, and then this is in the search space. Like, is there any more intel on on that? Because those are 2 quite significant areas. I mean, I'm sure it's not.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the strong point, which is obvious, but it bears repeating, which is it's very, very common for Google staff who are it's a form of negotiation, salary negotiation, essentially, is leaving, doing a startup together, getting some kind of traction, and then you get acquired, and that's kind of how you can monetize your knowledge.
Contracts. You're not supposed to work on similar things and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, in the state of California, it can be a bit not so tricky. It's very commonplace, actually. So it's hard.
In state of California, you don't sign a non-compete. After you leave, you're bounded by the NDA, but you don't have to sign a non-compete. So if you're working for an employer.
And well, here's an interesting point on your question, Dave. Apple recently but it was reported that Apple has a very flat payment structure for acquiring companies now. They're paying $3 million per developer, essentially, in most parts, regardless of the market adoption, although there's certainly exceptions for things like Clubhouse, where they, when they had 10 employees, they would have paid more than 30 million, of course, for something that has really mass appeal. But for the most part, they're just putting a flat $3 million per developer, which, by the way, Apple employees and Google employees and others can go and do this and create any kind of startup. If it gets modest attention or any kind of modest traction, they'll get reacquired at $3 million a head, right? So if you get 10 people together, you got yourself a $30 million acquirable startup of sorts, if you can.
Oh, so here's an idea. Hang out at a university, right? Computer science department. Fund a bunch of, angel fund a bunch of startups that are local, right? Get a whole bunch of engineers to join them and then sell them to the big guys.
That's what people do.
So you have to live in Oxford or you have to live in Cambridge.
Hustle.
Carl just gave us his playbook.
Yeah. Now we know why Cal's in Oxford, folks. But that is part of the game that most people are not aware of. Yeah, because
maybe we should check out.
There's so much demand for good, decent developers who have, if you were a developer who graduated from one of the better development schools, Waterloo, Stanford, Cambridge, etc., your market value is worth about $3 million, to that point. So yeah, you can put together a startup and be acqui-hired as a team. This happens all the time because it's a very efficient way to bring in talent and acquire talent. And there's a bunch of headlines that I just shared that Poppy found when we were on the topic of kind of military tech. The two headlines I just shared, the photos themselves are worth the price of admission. What a wild photo that is, eh? It's a photo of a jetpack of a Marine. One of the hard things on the open seas is, boat battles where you don't want to have exchange fire between vessels, is how to get on the damn boat.
You're talking about the gravity tech, right?
I'm talking about the gravity suit. You have got to see this photo. This is,
and Tyler, as an ex-Royal Marine, this is absolutely unbelievable.
You've got to see this photo.
I've seen it. I have seen it. It's unreal.
I know. I'm just saying people should go to the Twitter account so they can see this and retweet this. So the photo is worth just stopping what you're doing for a second and go to the Twitter account, TNATW. It was the 2 tweets ago where it shows this new technology that is the game changer in naval combat, of how to board a larger military vessel, where you have a deployable craft, a airboat, with somebody with a jetpack, and then the jetpack fires up and you launch your people.
Oh, that's so funny. I just saw
it. Did you read the Captain Phillips kind of part of it, Tyler?
No, what does it say?
So that, that movie, the cool movie with Tom Hanks in it, and like the pirates, and so I mean, it's just talking about the applications of it, and so there's in the Royal Marines, there's like the normal Royal Marines, and then there's something called the Special Boat Squadron, the SBS. They're like the SAS part of the Royal Marines. I mean, this is just game changing for those guys. Like, and they're used to like ripping about like Poole Harbour down in Bournemouth and like souped up like 250s off the back of them, like beautiful ribs, but like which was like the high water mark when you're in the Royal Marines, if you're like able to crew one of those and you're the kind of coxswain of it. But now I'd say the main social kudos is going to be you're like a jetpack owner. Anyway, this is so cool.
Yeah, whoever does starts, I imagine they're going to be selling these things like hotcakes. Quite an interesting development there. So we did.
Except the jets are on your hands.
Yes, and
so you're really
legs, I think, as well. Yeah,
you can't hold any gun or anything like that.
You don't need a gun when you're holding a jet on the end of your arm, though. It's kind of more like an Iron Man type. I imagine you can point.
The guy actually started out with that.
I want to see if you point it at somebody's face, it might be more effective than a gun. But it'll be.
If you look at some of the
when you're
other
heading
videos,
over, though, they can be shooting.
You can carry a gun if you look at some of their other videos.
Yeah, I think the key is the element of surprise, that they're not expecting you to be flying through the air over to their boat. Yeah, if they see you coming, of course they'll shoot. The key is to
they're going to hear you coming, though. Something that doesn't quite come across in the videos, and I've seen these things in person. They are not quiet.
Wow, I want to. Yeah, you have to cause a distraction, perhaps. It'll be interesting to see how it gets implemented in reality.
Tyler, do you mind if I go with the fintech news? Because
Please
I need
do.
to go do my actual work. So the two largest startups in Indonesia, called Gojek and Tokopedia, have announced this morning, a few hours ago, their merger to create the largest technology group that's going to be called GoTo. And why is it important? Because Gojek has spent a few months, I think we've heard since last December, that they were exploring a merger with the super app Grab that did fail. And since that time, Grab has announced its plan IPO. I think they've announced in February their plan IPO for about $40 billion through a SPAC. And now Gojek, their super rival, by partnering with Tokopedia, is going to be able to offer the drivers, to leverage the network of drivers to deliver even more Tokopedia packages. And they have, I think, 11 million. I've put all of that on the Twitter account. I've tweeted and marked the tech news around the world, as well as Monica. They have 11 million merchant partners, and they will be able to offer combinedly between Tokopedia and Gojek, better delivery, more merchant for their e-commerce platform, but also financing solutions for the purchase of the e-commerce, and financing solutions for the merchants, and financing solutions for the drivers, obviously. And so they have marquee investors in the combined GoTo group now that includes Alibaba, Temasek, obviously, DST, Facebook, Google. So all of these big guys, Tencent, Visa, Temasek. And what's important is that they also create a lot of jobs. They have been creating a lot of jobs and will continue to create jobs. So that has also a social impact at scale, which is the reason why I've been following them. They've announced they're also launching operations in Vietnam. Announcement also that was in the news this morning. And I think that this super app is emulating the model throughout Asia. Now we are seeing such models emerge, obviously, we've seen already in many other countries, starting with Singapore, but now we see the same model being developed in Bangladesh, in Pakistan. I'm sure all of you are now aware that similar models are also emerging in Africa. So just wanted to share that with you. In terms of numbers, the group is valued at $22 billion, but they do expect to go for an IPO in a few months with a similar valuation target as Grab, around $40 billion. That's it.
Thank you, Sarah.
I think that's an important news.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, for cultural context, imagine Uber partnering with Amazon, because it's one of Indonesia's largest ride-sharing companies and delivery companies partnering with the big e-commerce company. And you can imagine the potent benefits of that, as we've talked about endlessly about the future of e-commerce just continues to solidify and dominate. And it's all about this chain from manufacturer to your door. And there's about 5 important steps along the way. And now you see the e-commerce company partnering with the last mile delivery piece. And that's a significant bridge that needs to be made. And that's why Amazon is very focused on developing their autonomous vehicle delivery network that'll deliver stuff to your door. There's also a headline today on a similar point about, let me find where it went, the investments that are going into all of the New York City companies are now competing to get down to 10-minute deliveries within major cities. Where is it? I might have disappeared, but essentially there's going to be a continuing efficiency battle of, manufacturers, of course, go into the e-commerce platforms, and then the e-commerce platforms getting your goods to your door, and then the big piece in between there is, once it's sitting on the shelves of the e-commerce platform, the marketing of those, so to entice people to buy them, and that's where the social commerce piece comes in. And there's other headlines about that every other day now, and how that's coming to the US. The headline many people are still sharing with me is the YouTube going into TikTok and paying users to start using YouTube as an alternative to TikTok with the short form videos, like 30-second little dance videos, 1 minute little dance videos, because YouTube understands they need to create a whole new class of creators on YouTube who are short form 1 minute, 30-second creators, which is what TikTok is specializing in, because in the realm of social commerce, which is going to be more influential in selling you and everybody, shampoos and every other thing imaginable, is likely to be more of the short form content than the long form content. The creators on TikTok are perhaps better suited to promote stuff than the 20-minute content creators on YouTube. Yeah.
For us?
Yeah, Tyler, I was just going to say, I think I might have commented on this earlier, on the last mile delivery position of Amazon and other companies in the e-commerce space, where as we move forward in the space, I think the importance of TAS is going to become much and much more important, utilizing blockchain services. So, trust and traceability is a service on vis-a-vis blockchain and patented solutions on that, particularly in lesser developed economies. And
for sure. For sure, there's going to be the blockchain. I think one of the most interesting use cases will be the ability to track stuff from the supplies to the actual goods all the way to your door, to remove add a lot of trust essentially through that whole system in verification and etc., especially around.
Yeah, because what it'll do is to make that thing work, because this is a thesis that I'm into, right? So to make that back end supply so that content creation happens, like Tyler, you've been alluding to, like for 2 months now, right? And how social, like basically the content creators drive the demand, and then the supply for us, this point of getting it to people's homes. Had a little bit of experience with this when we transformed this UK brand called Argos. My friend and I, basically former Best Buy guy, and he came here to run this Argos brand, which was a catalog store, right? And we basically turned it around in a year, experimented with it, put it into different places. But bottom line is we had a different mindset. We made the stores warehouses, right, effectively. And so these little strategic locations they had became the little warehouses, and we just raised the SKU, the number of items we could deliver from there, to 20,000, and to 30,000, and so now we could get this. We could switch on same day delivery. So now we had this kind of hub and spoke model, and then we put these little small format things, and we experimented everywhere across the UK. Some in underground stations, we had them. People in the UK will have noticed the Argos kind of pickup points at Cannon Street underground, different places. We even went to banks to we just started putting them everywhere. And then where it got traction was with the grocers. So then Sainsbury's bought the company, and we broke up the group, and Sainsbury's owns this Argos brand now, and it was going to die. But the learning behind it is literally, which is where the next, and then when you start to bring in what Faraz is talking about, is that last mile, and this is just the UK, but that last mile, how to get to that 1 hour delivery. Even Amazon couldn't do it at that time, by the way. Argos, we did same day delivery before Amazon could, because we just saw the logistic. Yeah, and they were just doing it in London. We're doing it across the country, like same day, and so this sense of it's going to go from warehouse to somebody's garage even, and then to your house, right? So now, how do you track it? Which is exactly where blockchain comes in. So this is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and there's a
Tyler, there is some.
Go ahead, Monica.
Tyler, and Amazon in India has also launched its own short videos on its own shopping app. So it's quite interesting that video play is actually increasing, and Amazon plans to do this in other parts, in both the iOS as well as the web app soon. And this is kind of to take on other content providers, specifically in the video domain, which are becoming very popular. And Flipkart actually has its own exclusive content that they provide to many of their customers. Very interesting move, again, given what you were mentioning about.
Exactly right. This was announced about 48 hours ago that the Amazon in India now has this free video content of short form videos, and now you know exactly why, because those videos are what's going to drive you to make purchases on Amazon. They're not stupid, because when you imagine this chain from the manufacturer to your door, the e-commerce platform sits squarely in the middle of that journey. But on top of that, as kind of an arm off of that e-commerce, is the promotion and enticement for you to participate and buy from that e-commerce. And that's where the content piece comes in. And that content piece historically was billboard ads and newspapers and TV and radio. And as you know, that's quickly shifting to Facebook ads and Google ads and what have you. And that is quickly evolving into social media commerce, which Mark Zuckerberg talked about, and Clubhouse's founders are talking about, and everyone's talking about, which is anybody with any influence is going to be able to monetize. And Joe Rogan does it on his podcast. He's hyping this coffee and the Cash App, and Lex Friedman, who comes in Clubhouse all the time as a podcaster, he's pushing 5 different products and services. And Tim Ferriss, every week in his newsletter, he's pushing 5 different products and services. And everybody with influence is going to be able to monetize whatever reach or online influence they have. And that's going to be the game. And those algorithms and that matching today is very nascent and very embryonic, but that's going to develop tremendously, because that's where the untapped explosion of value is. Once you apply AIs to the equation of who's the perfect person to be promoting these products and services, that isn't fully formed yet, but you can better believe that's coming, because the amount of value that will come from matching, products and services to influencers, that's just an insane amount of value to be unlocked right there through algorithmically. So once that happens, that's going to be the creator economy booming in a way that it's hard to imagine.
There's another TikTok news if you want.
Mm-hmm. About Appuccino?
About the Alibaba crowd.
Okay.
Yeah, TikTok owner ByteDance have decided to drop Alibaba Cloud for all the services outside China. So this will cost Alibaba $800 million sales per year. Revenue per year. So they are considering, because I guess because of this US situation, they have set up their data center in US, and they'll be considering either Amazon or Oracle moving forward.
So the one I thought you were going to read is this very funny one about the rise of the Appuccino, how TikTok is changing Starbucks. And what it is the people are using TikTok to make viral videos of them ordering from Starbucks, in this case, insanely, ridiculously complicated drinks with 13 customizations, like extra caramel drizzle, extra whipped cream, extra ice, extra cinnamon on top, 7 pumps of dark caramel sauce, extra caramel crunch, 1 pump of honey, 5 pumps of this, and 7 frappuccino chips and heavy cream and double blended, and 2 cups and extra hot. And just like it's a competition to see how complicated you can make your Starbucks drink. And
this is still coffee.
Yeah, but this is what Starbucks' business model is actually all about, is the customization, by the way. So anyway, this has become a viral thing on TikTok to see who can make the most complicated Starbucks drink. And I have to say, if Starbucks is behind this, it's the most genius marketing ever, although it's driving their baristas insane, but it's genius marketing. But the point is this is the beginnings of what I'm talking about, of this kind of viral TikTok e-commerce, essentially, especially if the TikToker has a link directly to order a Starbucks as part of this video, because that's when you thread the needle, and that is the holy grail. Is here's a TikToker talking about Starbucks drinks. Here's the little button at the end of the video to order a Starbucks right now, either this drink that they had in the video or make your own, and it will be delivered to you in 10 minutes. I mean, this is where it's all headed. And that's the point, is these influencers are the ideal conduit to driving, impulse purchasing through e-commerce. And now that these 1 hour deliveries are all in place, because when you didn't have 1 hour, 2 hour delivery or same day delivery, there was no impulse purchasing online, and so the social media marketing didn't really matter. Now that you've got impulse purchasing, like we used to do in physical stores, because you think you want it, you grab it off the shelf, you buy it. That impulse purchasing is only possible when you can get the item, within a few hours or a few minutes. And now we're getting there, and that's why the shift of the marketing is going to shift from traditional banner ads into the social media influencer ads and etc. So you'll see it's already happening across Asia. It's just coming to the US any day now.
Tyler, can I share with you how we're doing this in China right
please
now?
do. Yeah, go ahead, David.
So we started with property development in logistic warehouses, right? It was simply sort of just a strategy my family took for our properties development business. And then as a result, I think in 2017, I invested in this, what we call an MCN, a multi-channel network in China.
Yep.
It's basically like a talent agency, but geared towards newer social media platforms. So the company I invested in is called M1. And M1 discovered a talent back in 2017 or 2016. And this guy, his surname is Li, is now called like the lipstick king in China. So he generates over 2 billion RMB in revenue online just selling lipsticks, right? And then the reason for us to invest in him is, invest in this MCN is because they're now working with all these different brands, including alcohol. So all of the major alcohol brands in the world, like Pernod Ricard and Diageo, they're actually now parking their inventory in our warehouses and then going through our MCN network to sell direct to client. So it's really taken out almost all of the middlemen in the industry, right? So as an end consumer now, you can buy effectively directly from Pernod Ricard or Diageo your liquor in China, and it's all being basically boosted by these MCNs on TikTok or other Chinese social media platforms. And then the way they do it is they would pack the inventory into our warehouse. So for example, in cities like Beijing and Shanghai, we have actually 10 different warehouses in Shanghai alone just for Pernod Ricard, because they need it strategically in these locations. So I don't know if we can get it to 10 to 20 minutes, but the delivery goal in China is delivery within 1 hour. And this is part of that article I just retweeted to Tech News Around the World. One of the largest e-commerce platforms in China, JD, is doing a separate listing, a spinoff of their logistics division called JD Logistics. It will be the second largest IPO this year in Hong Kong. And they are now effectively providing other e-commerce platforms with their logistics solutions. So the last mile solution, like you said, really is the essential thing in boosting that extra next frontier for the e-commerce space, at least here in China.
Thanks for that, David. And we just, due to the magic of Tech News Around the World, Poppy's working behind the scenes and just found 2 fantastic articles about the lipstick king that you're referring to, a 28-year-old e-commerce streamer who fans adore and brands fear. And so we just retweeted both of those articles that Poppy found from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account. What a fun third screen experience we're creating here in real time. Thank you, Poppy.
Hey, Tyler.
Yes.
Sorry, this is LS.
Hey, LS.
David, I have a question for you. Do you think the JD thing has to do with sort of derailing Alibaba as far as their whole
No,
commerce?
absolutely not. Because Alibaba never had their own logistics solution. So, in fact, this was part of the growing pain JD had several years ago. I remember talking to some of their U.S. Venture investors that were sort of scratching their heads because they were losing hundreds of millions of dollars back in like 2014, 2015. But obviously that has really come back to pay off in spades, right? Now that they have the best sort of in-house logistics solution. On top of that, even Alibaba has to partially use their logistics solution to deliver products to clients.
Thank you, David. So I see what they did. They built it, and now they're enjoying the benefits of it, because I
That's right.
remember that in 2012. I got you. Thank you.
And speaking on the delivery front, I'm just retweeting, and somebody sent it. I believe it was Poppy, actually, no doubt. This new drone drone deliveries. Google is pushing quite heavily and testing in multiple cities globally at the moment. And a new German drone maker called Wingcopter has today introduced a new generation model, the Wingcopter 198. And the interesting thing about the Wingcopter, as you will see, is that it can now deliver 3 packages at once. And that is a game changer, because previously these drones were doing 1 at a time. And the business model was working when you're delivering 1 at a time. But when you're delivering 3 at a time, you better believe the business model starts working. And the economies and the costs of delivery go down. And of course, the time of delivery drops tremendously. And it's quite an interesting read. You can see the image of this from looking at the Twitter account. Thank you for that, Poppy. And then a kind of related, contrasting article by the Wall Street Journal about a 4-woman group that fought the UK algorithms steps up for tech workers' rights. They call themselves, what is the name? Oh, Foxglove. The group named Foxglove. Let me read it from the start. A 4-woman technology advocacy group that forced the British government to scrap controversial algorithms for processing visas has led a public backlash over a tool for predicting high school grades is now taking on Facebook and Uber and others over workers' rights. The group, named Foxglove, can act as both poison and cure, has become a sudden force in the continent's tech circles. Its recent high-profile success in the UK over the past year and a half has given it a global platform usual for such a small group. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. This 4-lady group are basically activists for tech causes that they are passionate about. I predict, and I have already predicted, but not in this room, that we are going to see this is the beginnings of what are going to escalate into, what do we call them? Militias, activist militias around many of the issues that we debate here in this room, around privacy and data and hacking and etc., where the governments move too slowly to address these social issues, and what you're going to see are crowd-funded activist militias, and you will see green militias attacking carbon polluters in the jungles, and people doing foresting will be attacked by activist groups, and they will be crowd-funded, and people are going to, through the power of Patreon and tip jars and whatnot, be able to crowdfund and tip their favorite activist campaigns, and people will create activist campaigns to do what the governments are too slow to do. And this is what the Wall Street article doesn't jump to my wild conspiracy conclusions, but they are very much doing essentially a big love letter, wet kiss article to this group called Foxglove, which, mark my words, is the first of many much bigger ones to come. So I will retweet this out to the Twitter account as we do, but that is something to keep in mind. And I think that one of the first that you'll see of a notable size will be a green kind of activist group, because, well, you're already seeing it with Extinction Rebellion, although they're not really crowdfunding yet. But you'll see a more militaristic version of Extinction Rebellion develop as climate change continues without much abatement. Curious if Dan has a thought on that. Oh, he already had to leave. But yeah, let's see if my prediction's right, because I think my prediction rate is fairly good on this hacking point. And to that end, there was I noticed another recent development already on the hacking front, and here it is. So this article just broke minutes ago. A new survey result 60% of 1,400 CISOs in 14 countries expect a damaging cyber attack in the next 12 months due to massive shift to remote work. So now that remote workers are a new vulnerability in this hacking scheme. And here's why. It's because when you work at the office, you're working on office computers and an office network, which have a little bit more controlled defense by the company's, security experts. And when everyone's working at home, your home network is a little easier to attack and infiltrate and exploit, and a little more vulnerabilities. So that's why, as the survey said, that all of these company hackings that we're seeing are not helped by the remote work, the massive shift to remote working. And so 1,400 chief innovation officers and whatnot around 14 countries they themselves expect to be hacked in the next 12 months. 60% of 1,400 expect to be hacked in the next 12 months. So my prediction that there will be one in the next month is obviously a very safe prediction indeed. So we're now at the 2.5 hour mark, and there's just an endless flow of articles as usual. Poppy herself is just a headline machine. And thank you to everyone who's sharing these from the Twitter account. But I suggest we pause because we're going to meet again in just about 6.5 hours, which you can see by clicking on the title of this room. Please do follow the Tech News Club and the folks all the brilliant folks and beautiful faces on stage. And you'll see many of them in the upcoming events in the Tech News events that are coming up now. We have multiple events each day now, which is great to see how that's developing. But
it's a good session today,
yeah,
Tyler.
thank you.
I just want to give a bit of
I personally
homework.
enjoyed it because I got some of this last mile stuff and the drones and the kind of blockchain on the last mile that makes the front end come alive. The click your button and you get it, right? That whole system coming together. It's one of the most exciting things that's going to happen, I think, from my investment thesis over the next 6 months, a year. Right? So
and thank you to who was it that shared the Lipstick King articles? Poppy found the article.
David. Poppy found the article, but David brought it up.
David's point,
David, but he left.
He just left. But read that one because that really paints a picture of what's coming up. Because China's already been doing it. Yeah.
Tyler, there was a huge Twitter battle that went on between Elon Musk and all the other crypto guys. I'm just reading through the threads, but there's a lot that went on there.
Yeah, and then we'll touch on it in the next session in the other time zone because it's Americans and they're a little more crypto, heated. I'll say the Bitcoin just took another tick down on the price. It's down to 42,000 now. But that's more, I think, due to a combination of the technical chart trading and some of the news, of course. But we will get some of our Bitcoin folks that'll join in the other session. We'll bring that up as a hot topic for sure. Cool. All righty. Cool. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your Monday wherever you happen to be. And look forward to seeing you all again.
See you 4 p.m. UK time.
Yep.